Is Delaware boring? Is Delaware growing super fast? And does Delaware have awesome beaches? We're going to answer those questions and more, so let's pull up our anchor and get ready to set sail. We're going to unbox the state of Delaware. Ooh, what a pretty beach. It's not often you find a calm, tranquil beach up here in the Northeast like this. Many beaches in this part of the country are way overcrowded and dirty. But not this beach. Nuh-uh. This is Bethany Beach. It's one of Delaware's many great beaches. A lot of people from all over the area come to Delaware's beaches in the summertime. That sounds like a good thing, but all those people flocking to this part of the state means there's no room for the locals. And nobody wants annoying Pennsylvania, Maryland, and D.C. people here, right? But these are the closest, nicest beaches for many Americans, and there's no sign at the state line saying they can't come. Can you blame them for flocking here? I mean, look at the place. Delaware beaches are regularly called some of the cleanest beaches in the country. But there's a lot more to Delaware than just neat beaches. I mean, this place is huge. Actually, it's tiny. There's still sort of a lot going on here in the Diamond State. If you're thinking of making Delaware your home one day, you need to know the ins and outs of the state so you know where the perfect place is for you and your perfect little family. This is Delaware. Now, some people might be like, Delaware? Okay, that's a tired joke. But no, for reals, people, Delaware's a real state. In fact, it's our first state. Little Delaware led the way to ratify our Constitution first way back in 1787. It's often overlooked. You can drive from top to bottom in under 2 hours. And no, Delaware is not the smallest state. That would be Rhode Island. Thank you very much. Of course, you could divide Delaware into many ways, but there's no better way than this. I mean, there's only 3 counties in this whole state. It looks like a Neapolitan ice cream sandwich with a big bite out of it, huh? With only 3 counties in the whole state, you would literally have to hide under a rock to keep from knowing everything going on. And if you moved here, you'd notice that each of these counties has a very distinct lifestyle and culture and topography. Therefore, if you moved here, your choices of where to move will be pretty easy. Are you a conservative redneck, a beach bum, or do you want to live in a big city and deal with traffic? Like up here in the first region we'll discover, Newcastle County. We're going to begin up here at the top of the state. Now, this is by far the most crowded and liberal part of Delaware. Newcastle County is considered to be part of the North, and it's home to 2/3 of the state's population. There's a good chance if you're on your way up and down the East Coast, you passed through Newcastle County and didn't even know it. A lot of people up here identify with the culture of Philadelphia, sadly, and it's often said that Newcastle County is perfectly positioned where you can only within a short drive go to major cities like Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. Although, I don't know if that's a good thing. Who wants to visit those places? Those places suck. Up here at the very top of the state, along the Pennsylvania state line, is sort of an extension of the wealthy Philadelphia suburbs. You could say a lot of this area here is rich old people, although that's a generalization. A lot of it's rural, but places like Greenville and Hocassin stand out as being upper class. Greenville and the surrounding area is often referred to as Chateau Country because of the mansions that were built by the billionaire DuPont family, which made their money making gunpowder and later other stuff. The DuPonts did a lot of land preservation in Delaware, so they didn't just invent something that killed a lot of people. Homes here in Greenville are about a cool $1 apiece, but if you have that kind of money, why would you move to Delaware? Plus, Joe Biden lives here. Who wants to live near him? Or if you're a wealthy snob, you can move to Hocassin. There's lots of old rich people here too, but homes are about half as much as in Greenville. Nearby Pike Creek is also a respectable suburb off the beaten path. It's kind of a middle ground between the drunk kids in Newark and the ghettos of Wilmington. Pike Creekers don't like Hocassiners much. There's kind of a territorial small town thing going on in this part of the state. There's lots of private schools up here too, because Delaware public schools are pretty lousy. Over here's the Ardens, or Arden. It's an art colony that was built in the 20th century. If you're a hippie, you'd like it. Ellesmere is an average middle-class community of 6,000 people. They try to do fun stuff and look out for one another here. Homes are about $174K. If you want to live near the water, there's Delaware City. It's a former shipping town and a popular area for boating. And then there's this whole island, everyone. Delaware has 2 islands, actually. This one's called Pea Island, on which Fort Delaware is located. It's an old Civil War fort that's now a state park. Go Union! Or you could live up here in Newcastle, the historic part of the state. There's a lot of old colonial architecture here, and the only national park in the whole state's here too, which finally opened up in 2015 or something. Outside of the historic part, it has a bad reputation among locals. It looks quaint, but locals say Newcastle's kind of rough in some places. Down here along Route 40 are the communities of Bear and Glasgow. These are just old suburbs built for the working class back in the 1970s. They're sorta kinda bad, but not bad. If you haven't noticed yet, most of northern Delaware largely consists of unincorporated suburbs with no real downtowns. It's just a bunch of tax-free strip malls which help draw in people from out of state. But the shopping up here is amazing! At least that's what the out-of-staters think. Delaware has no sales tax, so everyone from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland come to Delaware to shop during Christmas. The main destination is the Christiana Mall. It's a big deal for Delaware. So is a casino here. Each county in Delaware has its own casino, which is actually something to do. But it's Delaware. What'd you expect? It's also fun to watch teenage girls come over from New Jersey to shop and try to figure out how to pump their own gas, because in New Jersey, you don't have to pump your own gas. Other suburbs to avoid in Newcastle County are Newport and Claymont. Claymont's a former steel town that's trying to reinvent itself. Newport's just kind of rough. In these places, you could be in a nice part of town in one block, and then 2 or 3 blocks over, you're in the hood. So keep that in mind. Of course, there's Newark, the third biggest city in this teeny tiny state. There's 34,000 people here, many of them college students. This is home to the University of Delaware, everyone. Near campus isn't too bad, but there's some cruddy areas in Newark too. Newark used to be a factory town, but most of that's gone now, leaving the University of Delaware as its top employer. Most of the students here are actually not from Delaware. There's a lot of upper middle class kids from Jersey or Long Island that go here. All the bars and restaurants are along Main Street. For a college town, Newark is pretty sterile, with strict laws against dancing at bars, and they kick you out at 1 a.m. There are no professional sports teams in Delaware, so you think people would be clamoring to attend UD football games, but they don't. They pretty much have to beg people to come to campus, and that still doesn't work. But hey, they created Joe Flacco, so that's cool. To get their sports fix, Delawareans watch Philadelphia sports teams in these parts. Many people in the lower part of the state watch Baltimore or DC teams, although for some reason the Dallas Cowboys are really popular here too. Or to get your sports fix, you can just go to the Blue Rocks games over here in Wilmington. That's a minor league baseball team. But take heed, future Delaware resident, Wilmington is no joke when it comes to crime. You could think of Wilmington as a ghetto, crime-ridden extension of South Philly. It's by far the biggest place in the state, where there's 70,000 people. Not too long ago, Newsweek called Wilmington Murder Town, USA because of all the shootings going on here. Some call it Little Detroit. It's slowly improving in terms of robberies and shootings, but there are straight terrible places to live here. Of course, much of the crime's beef between gangs and drug dealers and punks who wake up at 4 p.m. who have nothing else to do but rob and murder. But trust me, unless you're in certain parts of town, you might not be happy living in Wilmington. And also don't forget, this is home to Joe Biden. Wow, Joe, your place looks so great. You're doing such a good job helping your community. At least they got rid of the bucket. There are some nice parts of Wilmington, though. Come on now. Trolley Square is a quirky area with a bunch of bars, restaurants, and pubs. The riverfront area over here is the nicest part of the whole city, but it's also the most expensive. Like, way too expensive. Condos here are like $250K. For Wilmington, Delaware, what? They're trying to make Wilmington better, and they're trying to get Philadelphia yuppies to move to the area by gentrifying the place. Jobs-wise, it's going to be a lot of banking and credit card companies. Bank of America, Chase, Discover Card, Barclays, and ING Direct have a presence here. Half of U.S. credit card companies have their operations here. That's because of the state's loose tax and credit laws. And there's a ton of corporations located in Delaware, too. In fact, 60% of all Fortune 500 companies incorporate here in Delaware. That's because Delaware's tax laws make it a tax haven for corporations. They don't have to pay certain corporate taxes, among other loopholes like liability protection. So you may not know it, but there's more companies incorporated here than there are people. Let that sink in. There's more companies based in Delaware than residents. Wilmington isn't known for being very fun, but the Queen is an entertainment venue that brings in good music. It's a highlight in a sea of bland. The pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca's U.S. headquarters is in Wilmington. Yay, medicine! They had a big part in developing our COVID-19 vaccine. Hey, Mappy, have you got your vaccine yet?
Yes, I got mine about 20 minutes ago.
Looks like they forgot something. And where's your mask?
Do I still need to wear a mask? I'm vaccinated.
that's not a question for me, Mappy. That's a question for this guy. This is called the MOT, or Middletown, Odessa, Townsend. You could throw Smyrna in there too, I guess. This area has been growing really fast, especially Middletown, which has been attracting a lot of ex-New Jerseyans and former Pennsylvanians and Maryland refugees who want a lower cost of living. It's not super exciting here, but for Delaware standards, this is the new jam. This part of the state used to be a collection of farm towns, but now you have areas like this, all new housing developments and fancy new schools. Can you believe that? Right here in the middle of nowhere, Delaware. Moving on from Newcastle County, we're now going to visit the second of Delaware's counties. To get there, we're going to cross over the river, aka the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal, aka the C&D, and get into Kent County. If Newcastle County is the north, then this part of Delaware is the south. This part of Delaware here is sort of where the north and the south meet. And when you cross this river, things begin to change fast, mister. We're now in the slower lower, or lower slower Delaware, or the LSD. That's because it's a much slower pace of life down this way. The slower lower is kind of getting faster, at least up here towards the north end of Kent County. Once you leave the metropolis, that is the MOT, you get into some serious redneck, conservative NASCAR farming land. Much of the slower lower Delmarva Peninsula part of Delaware is very rural and very red. People in northern Delaware don't identify with the folks down this way, and southern Delawareans don't really want to be associated with the people up by Wilmington, and they hate the fact that most of their tax money goes up north. Northern Delawareans think they're from Philly. Southern Delawareans think they're from Alabama. If you want to move to Delaware and want something that's sort of like the Midwest meets the South with a beach, this is where you'd like it the most. Slower Lowerians take pride in their nickname. To them, it represents everything they love about their area. They're closer to the southern way of life, and people are kinder and friendlier. It just feels like country down here. It's pretty common to see lots of rednecks driving around in their beat-up chicken trucks and to smell a chicken farm every few miles. While it sounds peaceful for work, you're going to find it's tough going if you aren't a farmer or a service member or don't want a government job. The state capital's right here in this county. It's called Dover. If you moved here, you probably wouldn't find it very exciting, albeit sort of sleepy and somewhat dangerous. A home here is about $225K. There's 37,000 people in Dover, and the population hasn't ticked up a lick in like forever. The NASCAR track / horse racing track / casino is the only real tourist spot for like 30 minutes in any direction. Important economic engines in Dover include Delaware State University, a craft factory, the government offices, and the Air Force Base. You may not know it, but Dover AFB is where service members killed in combat are repatriated. That's super awesome of you guys at Dover Air Force Base to do that, and we salute you. Dover also hosts the Firefly Music Festival, which is sort of a big deal if you're into the Killers and Machine Gun Kelly. Hey, I'd pay to see that. Take Billie Eilish, Lizzo, and Megan Thee Stallion off, and you got a pretty decent show. I mean, Billie Eilish songs aren't terrible, and her brother is really good at making beats, but their whole thing just doesn't do well live and in person, just saying. Kent County is also notable for having an Amish community. It's just quiet here, just small town life down here in the middle of the slower lower. Everybody knows everybody, and there's a small town feel. Is that good? Well, do you want everyone to know your beeswax?
Are there any BLM riots in Delaware?
Not in this part of the state, Karen. Probably more towards Philly. Why do you ask?
'Cause Mappy lives matter too.
Okay, sorry everyone. That kind of came out of nowhere. For fun, in the middle of Delaware, there's hiking in state parks, and there's boating on the rivers and in the bays. If you like mountains, though, the highest point in this state's probably a park bench. It's so chill in Delaware that one thing people stress out about is their license plate number. Apparently, the lower your license plate number, the cooler you are. People have actually spent like $650,000 to buy license plates with really low numbers here. And some people even leave their license plates to family members in their wills. The lower the number, the more badass you are. At least that's what they think. But it's Delaware, so, there's not a lot of stuff to do to set you apart from everybody else. Kent County in general has no real identity. It kind of got the short straw. It's not close enough to the big cities to be exciting, nor is it close enough to the beaches either. And that's where we're going to head next, down to our final region of Delaware, Sussex County. Sussex County is the largest county in the state. It's also the fastest growing of all Delaware counties. It's getting more expensive to live here, mostly because the retirees are flocking here to be close to the beach. But before we get to the beach, There's a few other areas in this part of the state worth mentioning. Sorta. The deeper into Sussex County you get, the more southern it gets. Outside of the coast, it's going to be more rednecks, more hicks, more farming. You, non-Delaware resident, may not know it, but this state has a bunch of chicken farms, a bunch of small backyard poultry farms, and some really massive commercial egg-laying facilities. In fact, Sussex County grows more chickens than any other county in the country, people. Well, all those chicken feathers are supposedly making people sick in the sticks, but the chicken farmers are using their political clout to keep pumping out chickens and eggs. We'll see how that tale ends. However, as this state continues to grow, sadly, they're taking out lots of farmland in Delaware. They're building all these new housing developments, which serve as bedroom communities for people who work in other states. And it's not just out here in the sticks. They're also developing fancy new buildings along the waterfront and along the popular beaches. Basically, anywhere they can build homes downstate, they're doing it. I guess if you're planning to move here, then that's good news. If you're an actual rare native Delawarean, then you're sick of the new strip malls and traffic. Who'd have thunk it? Lower Delaware is getting crowded. Milford's here. There's 10,000 people in Milford. It used to be a shipbuilding town, and now there's a lot of shopping. People who were priced out of the beach towns relocate here to Milford. It's not too bad a place, actually, where you can get a home for like $250K. They just turned their old Walmart into a movie theater. That's cool. Milton here is mainly known as the headquarters of Dogfish Brewery, which is a big deal in Delaware. Milton's also growing kind of fast, which tends to be a theme for many Delaware towns in the eastern Sussex County area. Seaford, here along the western side of the county, was once home to a nylon factory, and that employed most of the town. But since DuPont left, they're scrambling to find new ways to revive their town. You likely wouldn't want to live here, nor would you want to live in Laurel, which is kind of run down and more hicks in the sticks. The rest of rural Sussex County is smallish towns with anywhere between 1,000 and 7,000 people. They're sort of safe and mostly quiet, where you can get a home for about $250,000, and you'll likely be bored. But boring is subjective, right? And then we have the Delaware beaches, everyone. As we mentioned earlier, there's some really nice beaches on Delaware's eastern shore. If you moved here, you're going to learn to take the back roads to the beach, since so many of them are popular among out-of-state residents. Lewis is a popular beach here on the north end. It's one of the oldest communities in the state, and there's a lot of Dutch history and boating here.
Anchors away!
A few miles south of that is Rehoboth Beach, or RB. This might be the main tourist draw for the entire state. It's a popular vacation destination for a lot of yuppies, especially Washington, D.C. who's. This is the state's prototypical boardwalk beach. It's also known for being very gay-friendly, and there's a popular gay spot here called Poodle Beach. This is a very expensive beach where homes go for about $550K, but many are way more than that. Dolly's was a super cool candy store here, but they closed it down and merged it with another candy store on the boardwalk. Delaware peeps love their boardwalk candy, as well as their boardwalk pizza and their boardwalk ice cream. Other Delaware fare includes tons of crab cakes, steamed crabs, crab dip, these things called slippery dumplings, and Wawa subs. They also love scrapple, yuck, and these things called thrasher fries, which are cooked with lots of vinegar. Like 2 miles further south, you come to Dewey Beach. While Rehoboth Beach tends to draw an older crowd, Dewey Beach is way more popular for the 20 and 30-year-olds. Now this is a party, people. There's tons of popular bars here, including the infamous Bottle and Cork, where who knows what you might see. You probably wouldn't want to live here. Or maybe you would. Way down the coast further is Bethany Beach. This is a much smaller beach, and it's much more chill. It's more quiet and calm and very family friendly. Homes here about $500,000, but look at that view, people. Then way down here is Fenwick Island, which is a mile-long stretch with chill beaches and touristy stuff. And from here, you're close enough to drive the 20 minutes it takes to get to Ocean City, Maryland, which is not chill nor quiet. There are lots of other hidden, quiet bayshore towns in Delaware too, and if you moved here, you'd likely discover them. Places like Bowers Beach, Slaughter Beach, Pickering Beach, and Woodland Beach, they're far less crowded. Most of Delaware's beaches are generally well behaved, and most are very clean. In fact, Delaware's beaches regularly make lists of the cleanest beaches in the country, people. Delaware may not be a very exciting place in many regards, but it certainly is unique. It's a good mix of Northeast and Mid-Atlantic and a lot of Southern country living. Outside of the craziness that's the Wilmington metro area, most of Delaware has an intimate feel throughout it. People are generally friendly. Residents here seem to both love and hate Delaware at the same time, but they're just as likely to complain about living there, too. All right. Well, that's the state of Delaware for you. It's a pretty cool state, I have to say. I hope you learned something. I know I did. A lot of people in Delaware consider it the best kept secret in the country, which is kind of crazy now because all these new people are moving in. In fact, Delaware's grown by 10% in the last 10 years, making it the 13th fastest growing state. One day, Delaware's going to have 1 million people. Can you believe that? Well, for all the people that are moving down to Delaware for a quieter life where it's safer and more laid back, maybe some of those new people can convince them to actually keep the place open past midnight one day. And here's a really cool song about Delaware. Delaware, I dreamed of space to make a new friend. Delaware is a place where safe can't comprehend. And I know the beach here is wonderful, and there's something about the slow life here. I could never leave you, I could never leave you. You'd care if I leave you, you'll care if I leave you. Yeah, I can see I got something special in my life. Delaware, 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 Delaware. And all across the nation, let's get one thing straight. We're not part of Pennsylvania. Yes, we are a state. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great. You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.
And are you looking to move and need advice? I do consulting. That's right. I'll sit down and talk about where the next perfect place for you and your family should be. I do it all the time. Together, let's find you a new home that's safe and checks all your boxes. You can get my email in the description to find out how I can help you find your perfect relocation. Who are Delawareans?
I think the stereotype is mostly that we're from Pennsylvania. That's the it's like it's either that or that we don't exist. That's the other one that we get a lot. Like people don't think Delaware's a state, or they think that we're a part of Pennsylvania. Those are the kind of the top ones. But I guess, I mean, as somebody who grew up here, I'd say like the stereotypical Delawarean is from the suburbs and they work in banking or chemistry. Because like we were founded by we were basically founded by the DuPonts, essentially. Like they were the people who started the industry around here, and DuPont company had like a really big impact on the state. And then later on, I think around the early 80s, one of like our governor, I can't remember what his name was, but he signed in like a banking law that basically made really favorable banking laws for credit card companies. So a lot of credit card companies came in Delaware in the 80s. So we were actually hit pretty hard by the 2008 recession. That was we lost MBNA, which was like a really big banking company. So, and yeah, it's been interesting to see what's going on because DuPont is basically kind of shifting out of the state as well. So we don't really, those are kind of the main things I've noticed.
Yeah. So there's a lot of banking, a lot of credit card stuff.
A lot of credit card stuff in the South. Like in the southern part of Delaware, I'd say at one time it was mostly known for farming, like soybeans, especially soybeans. Chicken farms. Chicken farms are pretty big in the state at one point, but a lot of that is getting developed because we're getting a lot of people coming in from like New York and New Jersey because of like our lower property taxes. So we're getting like a lot of retirees when they're coming into the state.
Yeah. How do people in the slower, lower feel about having all the people coming in from out of state?
Um, it's been kind of mostly from what I hear, they don't like it becoming faster. One person was like, he said to me, I don't like how they're making this place faster than it should be. Like they're making it busier than it should be. And they have really like their whole idea is that they don't want like buildings taller than like 4 stories. You know what I mean? Like they and so um it's definitely I would say that it's usually negative. I feel like the state kind of likes the way things are, but they you definitely like read a lot of complaints about like people moving in. Although like as someone I lived in Western Pennsylvania for a couple of years. And in Western Pennsylvania, they would kill for the kind of development we get here. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of interesting, like, but it's mainly like most of the development around here is it's just a lot of strip malls, a lot of housing developments and all that. I would say that we're mostly kind of seen as like a bedroom community for Philadelphia, Baltimore, and I guess DC.
But like even way down in Kent and Sussex County, you can't really get to Baltimore and Philly pretty easily, or can you? I mean, how long does it take to get from?
Well, Baltimore, I feel like Baltimore would probably be more for like the southern, like, because I knew people who would commute to like Baltimore from like Kent and Sussex County, and
Yeah,
then like um Rehoboth Beach is kind of like a big vacation place for people in DC, like the whole beach
yeah,
areas.
yeah. So I mean, Delaware. So Delaware is the 13th fastest growing state. They're almost to a million. You guys almost have a million people now.
Yeah, we're almost there.
You'll be there probably by the end of this year, um, if not next year. How do people are they like enough's enough? I mean, you can't.
Well, it's really interesting because like if you join like I'm part of like several like um Facebook groups and we talk about dollar and people. I mean, maybe it's just because it's the people who are joining up, but like it's a lot of people just like to complain about like the traffic and farms being built over and open space being lost. Like uh traffic is a really big complaint because they build like they build in like a lot of congested housing developments and then they don't really widen or upgrade the roads to go along with it. So people like I've heard people who live in Middletown. Middletown is like one of the fastest growing areas in the state. And I think in 1990 they had about 5,000 people. Now it's up to like probably 25,000. So it's grown like pretty fast and people like from that area will tell me that it gets really hard for them to go through traffic because they it's just really congested in certain areas. Like they built the houses and they built like the shopping developments, but they didn't really build like the road infrastructure to handle it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, so I guess the question is, when new people come to your state, what do they say when they get there? Are they like, oh my God, Delaware is so much different than anywhere else I've ever been? Or are they like, hey, it's just another kind of rural, farmy, out in the middle of nowhere place with new homes that is cheap? I mean, what is the newcomer's perception of
They, um, so like when I talk to people who are like new to the state, I guess the main thing they ask about is like if there's any nightlife, which
Mhm.
there really kind of isn't. I would
Yeah.
say like our last call in the state is like 1 a.m. and there
That's not
aren't
that
really
bad
like
though.
it's not that yeah that's true, but like a lot of people will go up to Philadelphia. Well, 'cause that's a really popular thing to do is if you're looking for the nightlife, you'll go to like Philadelphia or
Yeah.
you'll go down to like the beaches. We do have a little bit like around the University of Delaware area, like because that's the college town. But if you're 32, you don't really feel like hanging around like a college town anymore. You know what I mean? So um, another thing, another thing to note, like when I talk to people like from out of the state and that they're not really like used to Delaware, is that people in eighth grade. I feel like this is pretty unique to Delaware. Is that so through the 1970s and into like the 90s, we had busing. I don't know if you're not aware of what busing is. What busing was, it was a practice of taking inner city students and suburban students, and vice versa, and making them attend schools that were outside of their district because they were trying to create like a racial socioeconomic balance. And what he did instead was have a lot of people send their kids off to private schools. So they eventually took that down around 1995. Like it kind of was phased out by the time I moved to Delaware. But you can kind of see like the after effects of that. Like a lot of people go to private schools. Like a lot of parents send their kids to private school. I mean, Joe Biden's kids all went to, I think, it was Archmeal. I could be wrong. It might have been Archmeal, it might have been Ursuline for his daughter. But like, you know, a lot of people go to private schools, and then there were also schools called magnet schools and charter schools. I don't know if you're not, charter schools
Yeah.
are technically, yeah, they're technically public schools, but they're kind of run like private schools. And so there are a lot of people who don't go to like, how like a normal person, like they'll be, they're assigned to a high school, they go there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then here it's like, you know, you kind of, a lot of people will like start to like look around for different schools they might go to. Like I was assigned to one high school and I went to another. Yeah, that's kind of like the typical thing. Like might um you could go private, you could go charter, you could go magnet, and that's especially true for like the northern part of the state. Like I feel like it's not as much of something you see downstate, but I feel like that's kind of unique to Delaware. Is that like that's kind of like a unique thing growing up here. Is that like in eighth grade you're thinking about where you're going to go to high school?
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people. That's definitely kind of different. I would say.
Yeah. I is it because the public schools are bad?
Um, the general perception is that they're not good.
Okay.
Like
So they're below
especially like in the
average.
northern. Yeah, especially like in the northern part of the state, like the Middletown area. Part of the reason why the Middletown area of Delaware is growing so fast is because like they're generally conceived as having a good public school district, but like the northern part of the state, a lot of people kind of opt out of like the regular public school system here. I'm not
Yeah.
really sure what it's like downstate, but that's what's kind of like around here, like in like the northern part of the state.
Where are you exactly? Are you up in the Wilmington area?
I'm kind of, yeah, I'm like pretty close to Wilmington. I'm like in kind of around the Wilmington suburbs.
Yeah. I heard that Wilmington doesn't have any public schools in its own district or its own city or jurisdiction or something, or is that just high schools? Or is that not true?
That's the high school. So like with Wilmington, like going back to what I said about busing,
Yeah.
um, like enrollment at Wilmington High School dropped all throughout like the 80s and 90s, and then eventually it was replaced by like, so the campus is still there, but the actual Wilmington High School closed. It was replaced by Wilmington Charter School of Wilmington and Cab Calloway School of Performing Arts, which is a magnet school that focuses on the performing arts. So we don't, and that's something that like politicians will occasionally bring up, like they'll talk about trying to like bring back like a Wilmington high school, like a traditional public high school to Wilmington, but who knows if that will happen or not.
So usually when a state gets overrun with new people, um, they start to lose their culture, right?
Yeah.
What culture is Delaware going to lose by being invaded by Pennsylvanians, New Jerseyans, Marylanders, New Yorkers that are moving to your state for a cheaper life?
Um, Not so much like around my part of the state, but like in the southern half, I'd say like a lot of them, they like their slower way of life. Water's like a big focus in Delaware because like we're on, the Delaware Bay, and we have the ocean, and there are like a lot of these like little bay towns, um, where they do a lot of fishing and muskrat catching and like things like that. Like that's kind of like the old school Delaware way, and those areas are starting to be bought up for like expensive condos and things like that. So those are things that you're starting to see go away.
If you were going to tell people that are looking to move to Delaware where the top 3 places to move and the top 3 places they should avoid, what would the top which ones would you say would be the best 3 places to move for a younger-ish person that wants some sort of a social life and a job and not to get shot?
I personally really like the riverfront in Wilmington, and then Trolley Square in Wilmington is probably like the traditional, like it's the classic, like yuppie area. Like that's like the yuppie area of Wilmington, and then the riverfront they're trying to develop now, and they're getting I like it there when I go out. It's and the thing that like we always have to perceive against is like the violence in Wilmington. That's something that people always bring up is like Wilmington's really violent, and I'm not saying that's not true, but from my own personal experience, if you don't look for trouble, you don't really get it. If you get what
Yeah,
I'm saying, like
it's a neighborhood thing. Yeah,
most
I
of
mean,
the
it's like that anywhere.
most
Yeah.
of the violence that I've read about in Wilmington has been personal beef that people had. It wasn't like you don't get people who were like randomly walking down the street minding their own business and then they get shot. Like it's usually like um gang related, or you got like in the middle of something,
Yeah.
like so. um and I, when you were asking about like things that people ask about, that's like probably one of the most popular things that I get asked about is like, where can I move to Wilmington that's safe? Because they kind of come to this state, especially like the younger people, usually for like banking, or because like as I said, our main industry would probably be like banking, finance, and then I think there's some tech. So when they come here, they ask like, is there like a safe place I can move to Wilmington? And like the usual answer is probably going to be like Trolley Square, um, and like the riverfront is pretty nice now. Like it wasn't nice originally, but it's been getting built up over like the last 25 years, and they're trying to gentrify Market Street in Wilmington. They're making pretty good progress. It's not quite there yet, but it's like one of those areas they're trying to gentrify.
How do you feel about gentrification?
Um, I'm generally leaning towards the idea that's a good thing. It really, like, especially like in the Wilmington, like in the cases I've seen in Wilmington, because like the Wilmington riverfront was just industrial land, so it's not like the expensive apartment buildings that they're putting up there. They're not displacing residents who like are from the poorer areas. So
Yeah.
I lean toward it being good. You know, but yeah, what else would you like to know about Delaware?
So statewide, if outside of the Wilmington area, if somebody was going to move there statewide, where would be 3 places you would tell them they should go, and statewide where they should not go?
Um, in terms of areas that I think are pretty good, Middletown, Odessa, Townsend. That's like a pretty good area. Like, it's a solid area. My sister lives there. She loves it. Hocassin and Pike Creek are considered pretty good areas. For I guess the southern half of the state, I've heard a lot of really good things about like Milton and like the general Cape Henlopen area. Like a lot of people seem to like, huh?
The which one? The what?
The general Cape Henlopen area, like like the Cape region. That's
Okay.
yeah, it's like where it's near where the beaches are, and it's getting a pretty decent amount of people like moving to that area, and like
Like
people seem to
north
like,
of Lewis?
yeah, kind of, yeah, like it's a little like yeah, it's a little north in Lewis. Um, Areas that I would probably avoid.
By Slaughter Beach? Is that where you're talking by the Cape? Is that
Yeah, kind of like the yeah, like kind of like the resort beach towns, but they're pretty nice. Like
okay.
the yeah, I'd say they're nice. Uh, for areas I would avoid,
Yeah.
um, hmm. I hate this. I hate to say this, but Dover seems to have a lot of problems. Um, Certain areas of Wilmington, like I would say Brownville. I'd avoid that. Uh, I know 4th Street is not very is not considered a very good area, and Claymont. They're
Yeah.
trying though. No, they're trying, but it's taken a while for them.
All right. Well, I mean, I think we pretty much covered the state of where to move and where to not move. And we talked a little bit about the influx of new people. I guess you guys are just going to have to, hang on to your britches and let all the people flood in and get out of the way because they're coming.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it's like every time you drive up and down, especially like along the Route 1 area, you just will always see like those little housing stakes. Like they're about to build like you always see like a new development sprouting up like along the beach route.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you're in for it now, buddy. It is Wilmington. Where do you live?
Northern Wilmington, right before PA.
So like in like what city do you live or what part of
Wilmington, we're
you live in
considered
Wilmington?
Wilmington,
Okay.
but we're not. I'm not in the actual city.
Okay. You're in the Wilmington suburbs, like in the rich area on the north end. I hear there's a lot of rich people up there.
Yes.
So you're like a rich snob.
All right, I'm gonna have to let you go, unfortunately.
Oh, I was just kidding.
No, sorry, I have to come up with something.
Okay.
All right.
Is Wilmington dangerous?
No.
Are you in danger right now?
No. I
Okay.
just have to help my mom with something.
Okay. Tell your mom I said hi. Thanks, Andy.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Jeez, I think that was sudden. I wonder if Andy's okay. As soon as I started talking about Wilmington, he said he had to go.